Okay. All right.
Got
So,
it.
marhaba, kulkum. Hello again and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today for this DC Arabic Teachers Council workshop, which is called How to Read the Room, a Storyteller's Approach to Connecting with Students. I'm Mimi Kirk with the Institute for Middle East Studies at George Washington University, where these workshops are hosted. They're generously funded by Qatar Foundation International. So I am just going to very quickly introduce our speaker, who we're very lucky to have today, and then give him the floor. David Sewell McCann is a storytelling and story listening expert. He's been immersed in storytelling for over 50 years. In kindergarten, David told stories to get out of going to school. I love that. And when teaching first grade, David told stories to help his students better understand the lessons. He's landed over 1,400 original stories for Sparkle Stories and has trained parents and teachers around the world. So David, you have the floor, and welcome again. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. And it looks like a few other people are coming in. First of all, I'm amazed at the light around me right now. It's quite magical. So I'm going to take advantage of this glow that's up here and over on the side. Perfect storytelling light. Welcome, Magda. So I'm David Sewell McCann. I had forgotten that I put that little anecdote about kindergarten and not being able to or using storytelling to get out of school. I actually can remember that right now. I'm surprised I put that in there. It is the most powerful way of using language with intention. And so what we're going to be doing in this I'll present, but it will be mostly an opportunity for you to practice with me. So I am hoping that in addition to those of you who have your video on now, in time, more of you may be comfortable sharing your video because it's not just storytelling, as you know, as teachers, it's not just your words. Everything that you do is telling a story. Your gestures, your facial expressions, the way you use your eyes, all of that, even your environment, even what you're wearing, even the position of your glasses on your face. It's all a part of what you're communicating. So not to make you super self-conscious about all those different details. It's just the case. That's the case. You walk into the room and people are already reading you. So I would like to take a moment after I'll say a little bit more about where I'm coming from and how I got here. And then after that, to give you a moment to prepare for this, I'd love to hear from as many of you as possible about what you are looking for. Not only with this, our time here, which is more focused on paying attention, but also storytelling in general. What are you picturing having come to this workshop session? What are you hoping to learn? What would you like to integrate into your work as a teacher as it relates to storytelling? I'd like to know that. And then today I can adapt what I have prepared to meet that somewhat. And some of it I can prepare later for our second time together. So I've been in storytelling for a long time. I was in theater and film, and then I became an elementary school teacher. And it was as an elementary school teacher that I learned the impact of storytelling. Theater and film helped me develop storytelling skills, but it wasn't until I was in the classroom that I learned that storytelling is actually responsive. I use the storytelling to respond to what's happening in the room. With theater and film, I would just prepare my part and deliver it, regardless of what's happening. But in the classroom, I needed to adapt, sometimes very quickly, my storytelling to what was needed in that particular room for that particular group of children in this case, but sometimes adults. So I did that for a number of years and realized that that was kind of my go-to skill. That was something that I had practiced, I actually was pretty good at. And so when I stopped teaching, we started a business based on the ability to create pedagogical or teaching stories quickly. And that's how I could create, now 1,500 stories for Sparkle Stories. And that's what I would like to bring in our next time together, which is how to be prolific, how to create stories quickly for your classroom, specifically for the needs of the children or adults that you teach. So that'll be something that will work in the second one. But in order for that to work, we need to have these first skills in place. Knowing what the room needs and then being able to quickly give it to them. So it's a 1-2 experience. So I did that for a number of years. And then about 5 years ago, realized that I am me. So I am a man, I'm a white man, I am in my 50s, I come from a certain part of the country, I have a very unique experience. And so all those 1,500 stories were coming from one place. And I realized that these were really usable skills that people who are not me need. And so I began to teach, and mostly I focused on teachers, but I worked with local government leaders. I still am working with all of these people, working with you, to give these skills to the people who really need them, which is you are you, and you have the group that you are teaching, and the skills work for anybody. So my mission now is to get these skills out to as many teachers and leaders and change makers and people who are trying to make the world a better place as quickly as possible, because they're very powerful skills. They're transformative skills, and they can really change the experience of everyone in the room. In your case, the classroom. So that's how I got here. Professionally, how I got here specifically is through Hala, who is I don't know if you all know each other, but Hala and I are in the same doctorate program at Antioch. And so I have grown to really respect and love and appreciate Hala's teaching, her perspective, her thought, and her academic prowess. And she came up with the idea of bringing me here to all of you. So I'm sure Hala may be coming at some point to this group. She and I may work together in the next one, so that we can adapt what I'm bringing to something that is more useful to all of you as teachers of Arabic. I don't have that experience. I don't know specifically what you need from that perspective, but she has a better appreciation of that. So just to be clear, 2 things that we're going to be doing in this and the next one is, first, on this side, is listening. In my experience as a storyteller, it is best to listen first, to pay attention first, to walk into a room, get a sense of what's happening, pay attention, and then go over to the telling. And as you know, as teachers, we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We pay attention to what's happening. We respond by speaking or, teaching a lesson, telling a story, whatever it is. And then we listen again, and then we tell again, and we listen, and it goes on and on and on. We are alive and interactive to what's happening in the room. So today, we are mostly focused over here on listening. And there's 2 skills, 2 tools that I'd like to bring today. One has to do with presence, what you are bringing before you even speak. And then the second one is called story listening. Which actually is a tool that is used in teaching classrooms a new language, a second language. Story listening is a technique for teaching. The tool that I'll be bringing is slightly different than that. It's an adaptation of tools that I use for storytelling. So we're going to be focusing on those two actively today for the next 40 minutes. And then in the next time that we get together, what I would love to offer is recognizing that storytelling is more than your words, is more than your sounds. It's all the nonverbal. And these three things are connected to deliver the final skill, which I think is probably more what you all might be hoping for, which is to be prolific, to use storytelling often, to be confident in your storytelling and do it a lot because you'll enjoy it and it works really well. So it's a funny word, but prolificity. I can't even spell it. Prolificity. Okay, great. So that'll be this time and next time, depending on what I learned from you today, and talk with Hala afterwards. We may do some adapting so I can better serve you. So now I'd like to hear from you. You are coming here with a hope, maybe, of what you would like to learn. And I'd love to go around with those that are here, and maybe we'll set up some system for people who are watching the recording later, a way to ask for specific skills, expectations. What is attracting you to this presentation and this workshop? So feel free to unmute, and you can ask me, or you can do it in the chat, however you'd like to.
I can start if you want.
Great, thank you, Fatma.
Basically, I start my professional as a kindergarten teacher.
Excellent.
So basically, reading and storytelling is important. And I have a very good knowledge about TPRS and TPR.
What is that?
Oh, TPR, it's total physical response.
Okay.
And TPRS, you act the story, or basically it's a story and you act it.
Excellent. Okay.
I do now CI, and I use a lot of story, but the students, they create, not me. I don't give them the story. And I'm not sure if you are aware of CI, comprehensible input, and their strategies. They use a lot of stories, and yes, my students, they create. Sometimes we come up with object, we can give it a name, description, and they start to ask question like ice cream doesn't have shoes, why he's homeless, why he's sad. And like we describe and we discuss the character.
Excellent.
So for me, when I came to attend, this is to respond to your question. I would like to see what's going on, something new I don't know, and I would like to learn something new, or I can see how can I integrate other ideas into my skills as a TPRS teacher, good believer, strong believer in that. So TPRS means really they listen to the story and they act it, and
embody it.
Exactly. So I had a good movie about Charlie Chaplin movie, you know, The Cage, even 100 years, but they loved it and they acted the video. So this is one of my, what was really strange for me, how these kids, they love this black and white video. And they acted the video. short video.
Yep.
I would like to learn from
Well-
you something I don't know, or I don't have, or I like incorporate your skills. I want to improve
Yes.
my skills, so this is why I'm here.
Excellent.
Because I believe in storytelling in the classroom. This is where it sticks in the brain.
Excellent. Yeah, that's been my experience too, that if you really want something, whoever your listener is, whether it's a child or an adult, if you put it in a story, it is much more likely to actually stay with them for a long time. I can remember stories that were told to me when I was in first grade, and I won't remember anything else in first grade. I'll just remember that. So, Fadwa, one thing that I would say is that my definition of what storytelling is broader than I'm gonna let these folks in here. Is more broad than just once upon a time stories.
No, it's
that
not.
we actually tell stories. When someone says, "How are you?" our response is a story. What did you do yesterday? Our response is a story. So when we're doing these skills here and in the next time, keep a wide picture of what that could be. Like our conversation is you and I swapping stories around your experience in the classroom and then what I would be bringing. So it's all of those things. I want to learn more about TPR and TPRS. That sounds fantastic. And really would be good for me to know.
It's
So,
the foundation for it's the foundation of CI.
Others, yes, Maria.
Hi. I would like to learn from you how to use stories for adults because I teach adults at the university, and it's hard sometimes to engage them in stories different than kids, especially when they are learning another language, so they don't feel comfortable with the language, with the target language. They don't want to do things that kids do, like acting out the story, and also sometimes they don't understand the story very well because they don't understand the culture, the target culture very well. So they don't like maybe how the story ends. That's my experience with my students. They always say, well, we didn't like the end of this story. It was shocking. And I give them like the explanation, like, well, the story happened in such a country, in Morocco, in France, because I teach French and Arabic, and I use stories in both classes, but I feel I need to improve. Maybe I have to figure out how to make it more fun for adults and make them engage more in the activities.
Excellent. Thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah, I was really taken with this idea of making it more engaging, using storytelling to make it more engaging and give adults another way of staying with you. One thing that is coming to mind with what you've said that I think is really important, which is that when we think of storytelling, we often think of the content, what the story is about. And so that's what people often, if they have an issue with the content. They want to talk about, I don't like the ending. I don't like this character. I was offended by this or that, or this detail I didn't understand, things like that. And that is we're going to be doing story listening. That's what I would call narrow listening. You're listening just to the words. But there's 3 other ways to listen. And you as a teacher, in practicing this tool, will be able to model that there's more happening than the content. There's the beauty of the language. There's the sounds. And there's also the way in which you're using your hands and your body and your face. All of that is a part of the language.
Yes.
A whole culture, a whole world in the language beyond the specificity of the detail.
Can I say something? So is it possible of you give them, can you hear me? I'm sorry, it's my lunchtime. And I mean, it's my lunchtime. So Is it possible of you to ask them to come up with different ending if they don't like it? And
Well,
if
let's yes, let's address at the end. I would love to have a section where we can ask questions, and I'll tell you what I do, and then we can get into more of the details on that front. So hold that question, Fadwa, or if you're not here because you've left lunch, I will answer it then, and it will be in the recording. And yes, the answer is yes. I change endings all the time. Sumer, Majid.
Thank you. So I adopted the teaching proficiency through reading, storytelling a long time ago when I attended one of the workshops, and I really liked it. And it's been very successful in my classes. I teach 7, 8 until high school seniors, and I also teach adults program at Sultan Qaboos Culture Center. The same story, I teach it for middle, high school, I teach it for adults, and it worked perfect for
Yes.
Engaging, encourage students to create their own question. Could be crazy question, but it's okay. We're looking for the how to build the sentences and use the question words to ask about the story, and then practice the reading, and then there are a lot of activities that I do, but and when we are done with the story and they understand everything, we'll be able to ask and answer questions, read, act. After that, one of the successful activity that I've been using is to have them create their own story. And like I put them in group of 2 or 3, not more. Because they'll be chatting all the time. So group of 2 or 3, depends on the number of students, and then have them work on, the big poster, the white poster paper. So they create their character. They will use the vocabulary they learned, and also the verbs. It's just different content, different ideas. And then after all that is done, then the assessment come. Here today, because I need to learn more strategies. And if there's, I tried it with adults and it was very successful. They liked it. They were very engaged. And by the way, all the stories, I write them. So whatever I'm teaching, whatever I'm teaching, I will sit and write story, use the vocabulary, the verbs and everything, put it in a story and then present it to kids. And I've been using this. I just needed to know is it possible to change the activity for adults, or if it's okay to keep it the way it is? And if I want to, if I can add more activities, like different stuff that I'm using. Thank you.
Thank you. That's excellent. I tell stories to, I told stories very recently, last week, in a public event. There were toddlers there. So probably 2 years old. And they're not paying that much attention to what I'm saying. They're paying attention to how I'm standing. They're paying attention to how I move my hands. They're paying attention to the sound of my voice and how I use it. I have found that the adults do as well. So the adults like to think, and they like to interact, and they like to seize onto certain images and certain pictures and think about them. If we're going to be working on presence in a moment, when a teacher or a presenter or an entertainer or anyone that is conscious of their own presence steps before them, you can engage a 2-year-old you can engage a 20-year-old and a 50-year-old in exactly the same way. You're just wanting to be around someone that is present. And that's where we'll start. I want to look at in the chat, there are a few folks that had some things that they wanted, that they're hoping to see. And then I'd love to present presents for it to you. One moment, Fadwa, let me just look at I agree that storytelling can be powerful, and I am looking for ideas on using that skill as I teach undergraduates, Arabic language, culture, cinema, new ideas. Great. I would like to learn how to use stories in the classroom for adults. Excellent. There's a theme there. I am looking to learn how I can make my students able to visualize the stories told to them. Yes, that's very powerful. I have to leave soon for a meeting. Be watching the video. Great. Okay, Magda. Understood. All right. Did you have something to add, Fadwa?
I would like to say something, and this is because I have some. This is from my own experience when I taught at George Mason. I came from kindergarten to, I think I taught before high school, then to George Mason. I closed the door and I really lectured them that word language class is acting class.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot act, you will act. If I act and you don't like it, you will like it. Okay, so basically convince them it's acting, and they have to change their voice, and they have to do this and that, and really it worked well with them, and they accept
I believe it.
That's what happened with me when I taught first year at George Mason University. So you need to convince them.
Yes.
It's acting class.
In this case, what we have in common with actors, with acting class, storytelling class, teaching class, is this first step here, presence.
Right.
So if we look at a house, our attention is often on the landscaping, the color of the house, the shape of the house. If we go inside, we can enjoy looking at the furniture. We can enjoy what's hanging on the walls, if there's anything hanging on the walls. But the primary thing that we experience, the foundation of that house, is the feel. So we get a feeling. We see a house, we get a feeling. We enter a house, we get a feeling. We go from one room to another room, we get a different feeling. We look at a piece of furniture, we get a feeling. And then we begin to create stories and ways in which we want to interact with what's happening there. No one has said anything. No one has said, welcome to my home. This house is from the 40s. We added this addition, all of that. You can do this without anyone saying anything. You do the same thing when you meet people. Before they say anything, you can look at a photograph. Before they move, you get a feeling. And so sometimes within that are feelings that we're not quite sure what to deal with. We make judgments, what have you. But that's the starting place with storytelling. The starting place is what is the feeling you get when you are with this person. So what we'll practice next is, what are you putting forward as a teacher the moment you walk into the room? What story are you telling them the moment you walk into the classroom? They're looking at you, what you're wearing. They're looking at how you move. They're interested in the sound of your voice. It's like what we were saying with the toddler. It's very basic stuff. And I always want to start here because I think it's the most powerful. If you are aware of how you're showing up for people, then you will be able to read them more effectively and change your lesson, change the ending, change how you're standing, change how you are presenting to meet them. So this is something that Maria was saying with working with adults. You know, you have an approach and you get this feeling at some point, I'm not connecting with this adult. I have a lesson, I've prepared it, and I can tell that this adult or this group of adults, they're not connecting with what I'm saying. What can I do to meet them? And my answer is, if you are present, if you're aware of your presence, the idea will come. So instead of it being like, I have these colors already to work with, and I'm going to use one of them, and if this happens, I'll use this color. If this happens, I'll use this color. If this happens, I'll use this one and this one. The idea is you show up, you get a feel for what's happening, and then trust that you'll just know how to respond. And what we'll be doing in this workshop is creating a bag of tricks, storytelling techniques, different things that we'll have ready. But without this, it just becomes, another form of preparation instead of being alive, present in the room, and interacting with what's actually happening. So let's talk a little bit about presence. One of the effects of actually being present in your body and aware of how you feel, how you're showing up, is it feels good. So some of you may have had the experience where you've been teaching and you can tell it's not going well, or it's not going how you planned, or there's that one kid or there's that one adult that just doesn't seem to be getting it. And we become self-aware, we start thinking, we start being a little concerned, we're not quite sure how to, what to do, and our energy gets kind of funny. And the idea here is I would like to teach you a skill that will help you land on the ground and feel good and help you respond in the moment. And it's a presencing technique. It involves you becoming aware of your body. I believe that storytelling is a body-based experience. There's the content, that's preparation, but the telling of the content is a full body experience. And that's what we'll start with here. Are there any questions at this point? Yes, Maria.
I have just one question.
Help me with the pronunciation of your name.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Great.
Yeah, I just have questions since you are talking about the body and using gestures when telling a story. But sometimes the gestures are different from language to language.
Yes.
Like in Arabic or in French, we use some gestures that maybe an American student is not familiar with.
Yes.
So that may be also challenging, and I don't know how to handle that sometimes because I may be more familiar with the Arabic or French gesture, and I don't know the equivalent of it also since I didn't grow up here.
Yes.
For example, in French, if we do this, it means you are lying. But I don't know, like in the story, someone may tell his friend or her friend, you are lying by doing that. I don't know the equivalent of that in English to do it. And that may be challenging to me since sometimes they may not understand fully my gestures. And I may also not know the equivalent of the American gestures. That's my concern.
Yes, it's a valid concern, and it's in the category of content. It's the same as the words. This word is understood by this community to mean this. This word by this community is understood to be a little bit different. Gestures are the same. So we have a vocabulary of gestures that we use that might be misinterpreted. What this first section that we're going to be doing will be helpful for, I'm going to answer your question from this perspective rather than this one. This one here will signal to you, oh, I just did this gesture. I just did this gesture. And 4 people in the room are doing this back, the other person's going like this. Because you're paying attention and listening, you have now identified exactly the person who's not getting it. There was a mistranslation. This means something different than hello. And so you can then pause what you're doing and say, somehow with this individual, what does this mean to you? Because you noticed something. You interrupted your teaching. You noticed something important, and now you're responding to it, rather than what many teachers do, which is just keep going. And then afterwards learn, oh, okay, this is actually offensive to someone, or whatever it is. Not a good example because I don't know that this is, but does that make sense to you, Maria? Okay, good, great. So you nodded your head and I understood that this meant something. That was a gesture. We communicated through gestures and we're still nodding. We're connected now. We're smiling. We're enjoying that connection. This is what I'm talking about, is that kind of presence and connection that can happen without saying a word. Did you have a question, Fadwa? You're muted, so I can't hear you.
No, actually, I just wanted to comment. It's basically, as you said, there is really kind of series of gestures, Arabic gestures, and you teach them to the kids. But in my own class, I do my own gestures. We come up with gesture. What does it mean? Yes. What does it mean? No. Sometimes if they answer me, if I ask question, they forgot the word na'am. Then
Yes.
if this, so I come up with gesture with
The
my
acting.
students to agree on it. Like sometimes we do like this. Oh, great. We do, so come up with
That's
new
exactly.
gesture, this is where it's applicable to me to answer me. It is good to answer me. I accept it with gesture. So it's okay,
Yes.
fine. And some other students, if they remember the words, they will say the words. But again, there is a series of Arabic gestures you can teach them to the kids, because like this one, it means that I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with you. And this is
Yes.
something I teach.
Yes. So because it's content and because it's ways of responding and ways of connecting with it, we will play in the nonverbal skills. We will play with developing new gestures. That I think is a very powerful, as Fadwa has said, a very powerful way to develop your storytelling tools is to actually create new gestures that this classroom agrees with. And you can work together on that front. I find that to be very exciting for everyone, no matter how old they are. You can develop a vocabulary. It's also good for you as a storyteller. It's like doing exercises to try new gestures just for yourself. To just create, like, I don't know if this means anything to any of you, but I'm making it up right now. This means, like, I am about to enter a room and I am going to ground and align myself before entering. I'm just making that up. So I try it and do that before I enter into the room, and something new has happened. So that sense of aliveness and freshness and newness is key. So you're Fadwa, were you wanting to talk? I'm
Sorry,
keeping everybody on mute until I have a
one
question.
gesture to stand up. When I teach them the verb, like stand up like this, they know walk, jump. We
Example,
use
right.
these gestures from the beginning of the first week, actually.
Excellent. Yeah,
And
and we'll be playing. Maybe you'll be here at the next one as well, and we'll be working with that.
And this is connect with TPR.
Thank you, Fadwa.
So, thank you. You're welcome. I'm sorry.
Excellent.
I'm just talking too much. I'm very talkative.
Me too. Great. We have that in common. Thank you, Fadwa. All right. I'm going to mute you real quick so that I'll go into this next section. All right. So everyone, I'd like you to try this. And for those of you who are comfortable being on camera, it's a gift to the rest of the people for them to be able to see you. So if you're comfortable being on camera, please do. You are invited to, because it gives all of us a little bit more to respond to. So what I'd like you all to do right now is just become aware of your body. So many of you are sitting, at least those that I could see. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can close your eyes and bring your attention to your feet and feel what your feet feel like. You can describe the feeling to yourself if you'd like, or you can just sit in that sensation of your feet in socks, in shoes, on the floor, tucked under you, wherever your feet are. I just want your attention to go to your feet. Good. And now if you could do the same with your hands. Maybe they're resting on your legs. Maybe they are sitting on top of a desk. Wherever they are, bring your attention to your hands. Great. Now, open your ears and see if you can count up as many sounds as you can hear. I'm keeping my eyes closed. You can open yours if you'd like, but I find it's easier with my eyes closed. Just collect sounds. You can give them names if you'd like, but just let's have 30 seconds of quiet and you just become aware of all the sounds around you. Good. I'm going to open my eyes now and look around the space that I am in and just notice different colors. Don't worry about what they are, what the objects they are, what they mean to you. Just notice colors that are around you. You can list them off in your head. You can do shapes as well. There's a quilt over here that's made up of triangles. A lamp that's circular. Notice the different shapes in your space. And because we are having a Zoom experience, notice the device in the room, the phone or the computer sitting on your desk. Notice where it fits in the room. See that it is here. Some of you teach online, so this is a great way to find presence, to just see that the device, the computer, is in space. It's in a room. This right here is something that any of you who have done any theater training or speaking training is a way for you to become aware of your own presence. Hands, feet, sounds, color. You can do this in 5 seconds. The moment that you enter your classroom, notice your feet, notice your hands, notice the sounds, notice the colors. And then after that, you will also notice what sensations are happening here. Are you feeling nervous? Are you feeling impatient? Are you feeling delight? Are you feeling whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, just become aware of what's happening here or wherever you experience feelings and emotions in your body. Here is your presence. And now we're in a place, we are present, where we can read other people. Instead of thinking about them, we are experiencing them. The most powerful storytelling in my experience is not a thinking experience, it's a feeling experience. So if I'm aware of what is happening in my body, and what energy is moving through me in the form of feelings and sensations, I'm in a better place to be able to read yours. So I'd love, I'll do it first, and then I would love to hear what you experience. I am going to talk about something that I ate, something that I prepared and ate. It doesn't matter what I'm saying. This is the content. I'm just going to talk. You all, in the present place that you're in, will reflect to me what you experience. Don't worry about the content, about the words that I'm describing what I eat. Notice my hands. Notice the colors. Notice the sounds. If your attention goes to something else in the room, tell me that. If you suddenly feel a change in your emotions, feelings, or sensations, you can tell me that. We're operating on a broad level, and this ties into the story listening. And that's what children do. Notice when they get distracted, they're actually listening, but they are listening to something other than the content of what you're bringing. That's good information as a teacher. All right. Hello, Arabi. I'll just talk. Pay attention to your feet. Pay attention to your hands. Pay attention to the sounds around you. Pay attention to the colors. And then notice what you experience when I speak. I had a late breakfast. By the time I ate, I was quite hungry. And I wanted vegetables, so I cooked up mushrooms and spinach. And I added an egg, and I made it into a sandwich. And I wish I could tell you what it tasted like, but I was so hungry that I ate it up too quickly to be able to really savor the flavors. Just ate it right up. And then continued on with what I was doing, which was a very busy morning. Okay. Check in with your presence. Hands, feet, sounds, colors. And in the chat, or you can unmute and say, what did you experience? Where did your attention go? What happened? What changed in your body while I was speaking?
I can go.
Badwa. Yes.
When you were speaking, I was trying to follow up with you, what, not to go step by step, but I couldn't. So, but I thought of my breakfast today. I didn't have the regular breakfast I had. So, and then I moved to another thing. So see how fast is my imagination and my brain.
Yes.
We had the grilling yesterday here in my classroom for the cultural club. So I thought, oh, it was good. I enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. And then I came up with, oh, I just finished my lunch. So basically it was about food. This is where I came.
Yes, you were making all these connections and it was happening in your
So fast
imagination.
and so fast.
Yes. And, Fadwa, you're not alone. Our imaginations can be fast that way. And so when you're teaching a room full of people, they're doing that too. How can you possibly keep up with how quickly everyone's imagination is moving from there? And the answer is keep becoming present. Keep becoming present. And trust that you'll know how to respond in the moment. You cannot prepare for how quickly people's imaginations are going to take your words and your experience and run with it. So instead, what we do is we get into an actor's space. We become present and respond, present and respond, present and respond. And then the next time we get together, we will be able to respond with a story that we make up immediately. Like Sumar, what you were talking about with writing all of your own stories. I'll call you next, Sumer, but I want to do some of the in the chat. I felt hungry. I saw two colors, green and yellow. And remarkably, yellow was the predominant color with flecks of green in what I ate. So your attention went somewhere in your space to yellow and green, and that was exactly the color of what I ate. And now we are connected. Maria, you and I are connected yet again. First with nodding, and now with the color of my food. So, Orabi, I was imagining the food you were describing and the room you were in while you were eating. And even just that observation of what you experienced is making me wonder what your kitchen is like. And so we're ever so slightly closer now and able to read each other ever so slightly more quickly because you were aware of your presence in response to what I said. And then Najet, I felt what you said as something boring. Excellent. Perfect. And I need to hear something else, like what is next behind your story. Beautiful. That is so important, to create a space and to be able to respond authentically rather than to be polite and to say something that you think the other person will want to hear. No, it's better for you to be clear about what authentically really happened. And that way we can meet each other. We can meet each other in that space. So let's go to Sumer and then to Maha.
So while you were talking, I was thinking and imagining the sandwich that you made, maybe because I'm hungry. And then for no reason, I jumped to the light behind you, and it reminds me of the Christmas tree. And then the book, the Bread and Black book, I was thinking, is that a dictionary? Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't know why it came to my mind.
That's such a great example. Thank you, Sumer. I'm glad that you said that. All of those things, notice how you noticing them, you being aware of your own noticing, and then sharing them with me, I feel more connected to you. I feel like I know you a little bit better. And we have this light and these lights and this book, which is a George Orwell collection, by the way, of essays. And we're that much closer because you were willing to actually describe your experience and presence of what I brought. So we're responding not on the content. We're not talking about mushrooms and spinach and eggs. We're talking about what's really happening. Yes, Maha.
Yes, hi. Well, it's interesting because first of all, I'm teaching pre-K kindergarten and second grade Arabic, and I have my friend here, Miss Salma too. She's teaching first graders, fourth graders, and the experience that you said not to worry about the content, but my mind jumped to the content, so I focused on
yes, of course.
Yeah, my mind was concentrating on the story that you are telling, and I started to encourage myself to memorize all the things that you were saying. And when Sister Summer, she was talking about the book and the light, I figured out that I really didn't recognize anything around you. I was focusing on what you were saying. Like when she mentioned the light, when she mentioned the books, for me, this is the first time I saw this. I didn't see it. I was focusing on what you are saying.
And your world got suddenly much bigger.
Yeah.
With all of the different things. And
exactly.
I would say, I would love to see your response to this. What you're telling me is that your mind, your brain, was paying attention to the content.
Yeah.
What if, like with the child that's rolling around on the floor and you think they're not listening, what if your body was paying attention to more than your brain was? Are you open to that idea that it's not just our conscious mind that is paying attention? Our subconscious mind
Mhm.
in connection with our body is paying attention to far, far more. There's actually a study about this where our entire being takes in 11 million bits of information every second. 11 million bits of information every second. Our conscious mind can handle 30.
Oh, interesting.
So our conscious mind gets all of the press, gets all of the attention of what words that we paid attention to, certain things that we're conscious of. But our bodies, meanwhile, and our subconscious are taking in a lot more. We know this about kids, that they notice things, but adults do it too. So the beautiful thing about storytelling, because it's an embodied experience, is we can tap into that 11 million bits of information, even though our mind isn't getting it, and respond to it with a story. So it's a little bit of letting go. It's like dream stuff.
Mhm.
It's very artistic. It's very soft.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying forget all the content. We can. That's what our minds do. But what we're doing with this presencing exercise is being able to read the room with all that's happening rather than just what our conscious mind is getting. Does that make sense to you, Maha?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's an interesting information. Yeah.
Okay, good. And I consistently observed your intonation and gestures. This is all nonverbal communication. All of that's coming in. Intention to get more meaning from what you were narrating. So there was this wide, which is one of the 4 ways of listening. There was this wide taking in of intonation and gesture as well as content. And then this narrow response of, I want to understand the meaning of what I was saying. Wide, narrow. Does it mean we are different types of listeners and we need to bring the subconscious to presence? Yes, we do tend to listen in a certain way, but I would like to think that we are capable of all the different ways of listening. It's just we tend not to be consciously aware of the other types of listening. Because of the time, I would like to introduce these other 3 ways of listening to you as something that you can be aware of, and then give you an exercise that you can do in your own time as teachers and practice it on your own time so that you can become more aware of how you listen and be able to have the choice of listen in a different way. And then I want to have time for questions so that we're done by 1:30 Eastern time. So there are, let's take this out. Narrow listening. Wide listening. Dense or body listening. And then what we've all experienced as teachers, emergent. Most of us listen narrow. This is what Maha was talking about, which is I want to pay attention and memorize and listen to the content. I want to get the words right. I want to learn the details. I focus. Narrow listening is focusing. If you work with young children, they're not so good at that. We get trained in school how to do narrow listening, and then as adults, we're all adults, we think that's the only way to listen, which is narrow. But storytelling is bigger than that. It's not about retrieving content, memorizing things. It's bigger. And we are still children inside. So if you teach adults and you want to engage them in a narrow way, they'll stay here, but it's tiring. If you can widen it and meet that child that wants to roll around on the floor, you'll be able to do what you're talking about, Maria, which is engage them in a different way. Instead of it being just narrow, you can start to pay attention to, like, what Summer, is it Summer or Sumer? I was saying Sumer, but it sounds like it's Summer.
Sumer.
Sumer.
Sorry, it's Sumer. Yeah, it's actually
Sumer.
Sumer. It's from Sumerian civilization.
Oh, Sumer. Sure. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Wow, powerful name. Sumer was saying about noticing the book, about noticing the light. Everybody in the room is noticing all of those things. And if you are present, you can notice them noticing, and you can connect with them that way. When I said this, I noticed you looked over here. Now suddenly you can discuss that. So narrow, content. Wide, the book, the sounds, the light, the movement, the gestures, all the things. Now we start to get into that, 11 million. Dense is what's happening in here. Your body, my sensation changed. I feel angry right now. I feel impatient right now. I feel love and connection right now. Your awareness of that is a part of this. You can scan the room and notice the children that are thinking about and experiencing lunch. They're hungry. You can see it in the way in which they're holding their bodies. You can feel that hunger from them. That's dense listening. I can feel your hunger. I can feel your delight. I can feel your impatience. You are paying attention and listening with your body. And then this one is the one that surprises. Oop, the light is making it kind of funny. Nope. This one, emergent, is the surprise. An idea. You pay attention to that. You're in the middle of teaching a lesson. You have it all prepared. And then suddenly you get an idea that might work better than what you prepared. That's a kind of listening. And it's magical in the classroom. We love those. So the exercise that I would love to give you that you can do in addition to feet, hands, sounds, colors. You walk into a room, notice your feet, notice your hands, notice the sounds, notice the colors. Present. I am present. I can read the room from this present place. Now, start to notice how you're listening to people. So I get the feeling that many of you work with adults. I think there are some that work with middle school. I'm not sure how many are working with the real young ones. Orabi, I'm learning so much from you with the way in which you smile. It's giving me a lot of information, and I love that. Every time I talk about kids, I get your attention. So I appreciate that. Smiling? Oh, really? That's why. Orabi means smiling?
Ibtisam, my first name, means smiling.
Oh, Ebtisan. Oh, okay. So Ebtisan is your first name and Orabi is the, okay,
The
got it.
action of
Ebtisan.
smiling. Yes, but I do teach adults all my life. I've been teaching
Oh.
adults, and I'm experiencing teaching children as part of a small project recently.
So you could, get out of that small project teaching children, bring that into your work with working with adults.
Yeah.
Because I'm noticing, so I'm using wide and dense listening when I pay attention to you, that you have this delightful connection to childhood.
Hmm.
And if you work with adults, that might be something you can bring in there.
Mhm.
Do the stuff that you're doing with the kids and bring it into the adults. They might enjoy that delight and smile and love. You probably have already discovered that, but that's what
Yeah,
I'm
well,
learning from it. Yeah.
It's been very challenging for me to kind of accept the concept of wide listening with children, but I had to deal with it, and I had to kind of like
Yes.
come to peace with understanding that they may not be looking at me, they may be scratching a paper, but still something is getting in
Yes.
their brain while I'm speaking. So
Yes.
it's very it's such a challenge to accept that idea of wide listening. But yeah, in practice, it is there.
And when you do, your shoulders drop and you can be more present in the room and say, well, they're rolling around on the floor, but I know tomorrow they'll be able to recite part of the story, because you see it in practice, and it's a miracle because it doesn't line up with narrow. This is how we pay attention, like this, eyes on, but that's just one of 4. Okay, so it's a self-awareness of how you are listening in the classroom. That's the exercise. That's it. Am I listening in a narrow way right now? Am I listening in a wide way? Let's try dense listening right now. Let me just try that. I'm going to pay attention to my body. And then here's the thing with emergent. This is the important thing. Look for a signal. And for some people, that's the moment where the hair on their arms stands up, or they feel a change in temperature in their body, or they literally say, oh, that's the signal that something emergent happened, and pay attention to it. It's going to give you some really good information. Even if you don't consciously understand it right now, it will be good information. So it is 1:10. I want to make sure that there's time for questions and follow-up, because from what I wrote down with people that really want to have more storytelling techniques in their basket, that's probably going to happen in the one that happens in the spring. But I'm curious if this is feeling useful, this idea of becoming present and being aware of how you listen, so that you can better read the room, so that then you can bring the right story for this moment to this unique group of people. So it's like building the foundation before we actually move forward with the storytelling. So I would love to hear questions from you about what we covered and anything else. And we'll stop right at 1:30 Eastern time. Oh, you're all in the DC area, so we're all in Eastern time together. Maria.
I would like to know if you are telling a story from a different culture or country, and there are many symbols or things related to the culture, to the history, do you advise to start before you share the story to introduce students to the history or the context, or leave that till the end after we finish the story?
Okay. So here is a thing that is kind of a paradigm shift, which is for us to always be aware that the content, that right there, the history, the context, where it came from, all of that information is going to be told. So the circle around the outside includes presence. It includes the way in which you're standing. It includes the sound of your voice. It includes the feelings and energy that are moving through your body. So what I would say is that if you do this first, right here, then you will be able to answer your own question around whether to bring context to the story first or afterwards. You might have it already, and you're going to give it to them first, but you can tell that whoever you're working with is, you're working with adults, so they've had a bad day. They rushed to get here. Some of them might not even want to be here. They may not want to go into their head and hear the history first, but you don't know that until you're in the room with them and you can feel your own presence and their presence. So you have it ready to give to them, but you realize, no, this group needs for me to tell them a story first. And so you decide to do the story first, and then have the context and the history after. But you walk into the room and you have an interaction with someone, and they're listening in a very narrow way. You had an experience in the last class where they were upset about some part of the content, and you say to yourself, you know what? This individual needs to know where this story comes from first. And so you give that first, and then you tell the story. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Which is that you'll know the answer to your question when you walk into the room, interact with the individuals that are there, and you can, instead of go right to what your plan is, you'll be able to be more flexible and adapt it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I was just wondering because sometimes I think the right thing is, for example, if I'm telling a story from Quebec, most of my students in French class, they don't know the Quebec before the Quiet Revolution that happened in the 60s. So I feel I need to give them that background before I tell the story. But now I will change my strategy based on what you explained.
It's just about being more flexible and recognizing that today is a different day than yesterday. And the fact that this particular individual isn't here today, you may have prepared something just for them. Now what do? They're not here. So let me read the room and see what the rest of the room needs. It's being nimble and alive to the moment. Sumer.
Just wanted to comment for what Maria's was talking about. We did it today. We were talking about the historic bazaar in Turkey. They call it Women Bazaar. So it has a lot of stuff that you can talk about history of that place and then why only women are. So what I did, I showed the video and then start talking. So I did not give the information before the video. I had them watch and then talk, watch and talk. So gets their attention of what's going on. What is this video about? Why only women there? So then after we finish the video, they start asking. And then after that, I gave them the information about the history and the features and the information related to the video. So first I got their attention to what I want them to observe. And then they start thinking and get the questions in their head and ask the questions, then get the information. I thought maybe that would help as a strategy with the historic events.
Yeah. And you can prepare that, have that ready, all the component parts. And then when you're in the space with them, trust that you'll know the right approach. This is a constant thing that we as teachers have, which is that we spend this time with a lesson preparation. We get it all ready. We believe that it's the right way to go about it. The gift of the storyteller is that they are nimble and versatile enough to make a change if need be, because this room is different than you thought it was going to be. You might walk into a room that has a bunch of students that just experienced a fight out in the playground. That you didn't prepare for that, but that's something that they met, and your lesson may no longer be the best one for that group because they are recovering from witnessing a fight. So instead, you might, you know what, I'm going to tell you a little story. And it might even be completely in Arabic, even if their Arabic is not that great. And you'll be able to bring to them a story off the top of your head, or pulled from something in your readings in the past that may be able to meet what happened on the playground first. And even if they don't catch everything and understand everything, they can feel from your presence that you are listening to them and want to help them for this particular moment. So I agree. I agree, Sumer. And still being able to adapt to what's happening in the moment is a real gift of the storyteller. Other questions, Najet? That was so helpful to understand yourself, the settings, and the listeners, and vice versa. Yes. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. Ebtisam.
So it's more of a comment and maybe thinking aloud. I think I love the idea of thinking about teaching as story work. I've always thought about the performative aspect of teaching, but also in general, I think in story work, storytelling as um a way of being in the world, a way of creating knowledge, narrative, um, as inquiry within itself, like making a story as a way of making sense of your own world, and making a story as and engaging in stories as a way to learn. And I think the paradigm of factual knowledge that we live in does not welcome that. But once we kind of like shift into thinking narratively, things become, we understand that everything within and around us is it's a story. So I think it's really very, I don't know, it's an intriguing idea to think narratively. I personally don't think narratively, I think poetically. So the way I think and feel and live in the world is like, these flashes of moments that I focus on and then I move on. I don't think narratively, but I think thinking narratively is a very rational way of being, and also very historical way of being. So I'm really intrigued by thinking about teaching as story work. That's my first comment. And my second comment is basically an experience I just had this week with my Arab comics class. I had an undergraduate freshman class where we did Arab comics and youth culture. And by the end of the class, students, their final project was to create their own comic. And it was very intriguing to me how they used the medium of stories to engage with their lives. Everyone chooses something about their own life or memories or something to make sense of through comics and through stories. And it was so powerful to the point that one of the students actually said, this feels like, what did she say? She said, this feels like a group therapy or a group session or something like that. A
Yes.
support.
Yeah.
She said, it feels like a support group. That's what she said. And it
Yes.
just
Yeah.
exemplified the power of stories.
That
Which
connective
is something
power that
I
happens.
just realized.
Yes. I actually, listening to your definition and distinction between the poetic and the narrative, I'm inclined to say that my understanding of storytelling is more poetic. I really do feel that this idea of a story being something that has a beginning, middle, and end is an assumption that may not be true. If the world is in fact made of stories, which I believe it is, then it's not made of complete stories. It's made of moments. It's made of images and feelings. So we have these images in our imagination. We have a bodily response in terms of feelings, and we weave them together into narrative. So the component parts, images and feelings, that poetic, that's my understanding of what you were saying in the poetic. Those are the component parts of story. And so in a world made of stories, who's the most powerful person? The storyteller. And that's the teacher. So you can, politicians, advertisers, they understand this and they use that for power. And teachers can use that for healing and helping and educating. That kind of, is my internet I noticed that you all froze for a moment. Did you all hear that? Okay, thumbs up. Thank you. Mimi, you've appeared. That makes me feel that the doorway is becoming, I'm seeing the doorway approach.
You still have some minutes. I just wanted to come back. I've been here the whole time, but I'm back.
Oh, I know. I
Just
felt
my-
you.
So
Right.
yeah, no, please take some more time. And if others, if if there are more questions, of course. Thanks, David.
Hala, my friend, the whole reason why I'm here, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm sick.
Oh no.
I just have a comment, David. I sincerely love whatever you said, everybody said, and comments through this session. I just have a comment with the last question regarding Maria when she mentioned the historic and gesture aspects with each culture for the storytelling. One of the good things, like the same as Sumer, and as you mentioned, it's something you can mention beginning or by the end accordingly. I'm teaching high schoolers. Sometimes when we have any unit, we have an essential question. The essential question serving as a question we ponder around in the classroom. You can say, as we say in Arabic, salon. We say salon, like everybody into, kind of chip in with, if we talk about celebration, if we're talking about historical, figures or whatever, and they chip in, and this way we start to pave the way for whatever we are going to talk about as a content or as a story. It's a way to ease the entrance for what we are going and give them background. So the essential question is a lovely way and take, for my personal experience with the high schooler, it takes us beyond what we are just having out of, like for example, Eid celebration or, a certain type of celebrations in the Arab world. So we go beyond that with the essential question and introduce the whatever historic or relevant with the story was what we need to introduce. I'm sorry again, I am sick.
I'm sorry you're sick too.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
But I really
It's
appreciate
lovely to hear your voice though, Hala. I'm
you.
grateful for that. And I'm also grateful for these words, essential question. It's similar to, as a storyteller, how I would use this phrase, the golden thread. What is the golden thread that weaves its way through a master story, like an essential story? You talk about festivals. There is an essential question, and there may also be a golden thread of narrative that weaves its way through the center of that festival. And it is the thing that we gather around. And like we were talking with Tissam, is these moments. It isn't necessarily the entire story. It might be a moment that we gather around. It might be an image, a powerful image, and a group experience, embodied experience of that image, delight, fear, wariness, courage, whatever it happens to be, community. That is what I believe can be the leverage point with a story, and something that can bring transformation, is awareness of that essential question, that thing that we gather around, that pole in the middle that we dance around. Oh, great. And here's a link that Abitissam has added regarding what they were talking about with comics, graphic novels, and more about Arab comics. Thank you for that. Any 2 minutes? Last final thought, question to add? Oh, we had, remember before Fadwa, do I have your name right? Fadwa, yep. Talking about, is it okay to change the end, at the end of the story? And you know, we have, and sometimes appropriately, a kind of preciousness around stories, especially stories that are connected to a spirituality or, you know, an ancient text. We want to get it right. And you have to really, you have to enter into that with your own personal ethics and your own personal picture of what's appropriate for this class, for this school, for this group of people. But in general, I remain flexible with any story that I'm telling, that if I'm in an environment where it's okay for me to adjust the content, and it is a story that, you know, is open to being adaptive, which is most of the stories that I tell, I do believe it is good and useful from a connective place, not necessarily from a, like, I want them to know this story beginning to end and for them to memorize it. If there is an essential question that's there, I'm okay adjusting the ending for this group so they understand the essential question. I like to remain in relationship to the story right down to the moment. So that's my belief, and Fadwa is going to be looking at this recording later. So some final messages. Yes, thank you to Abitisam. Post the recording. Thank you, Mimi. Posting the recording in the Middle East Studies. Do you mind going over how our reaction as teachers may heal our audience? Yes, in a variety of ways, depending on what's happening in that moment. It again comes back down to presence. You will know its effect on this unique group of listeners if you're paying attention, wide and dense in particular. Something will emerge that will help you understand a particular individual or a room as the whole, rather than just what we prepare and what we deliver, beginning and end. I've learned a lot from you all. I'm really grateful that I was invited to come and be with you and interact with you. And Mimi, if you wanted to also give people my contact for follow-up questions and recommendations too, ways in which I can adapt what I'm bringing that's more relevant to you as a group of Arabic teachers, I would love that. And Hala will help me as well.
Okay, thanks, David. I'll make a note of that. And there was one other question, just following up on those different ways of listening and how to react and heal the audience, if you had any resources. So perhaps if there's something you could mention now, or that's something we can send out later, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. I have a short video, and I have an actual tool, a PDF tool that goes through each of the 4 different ways and how you can use them. So I'll send that to you, Mimi, and then you can distribute it to everyone else. Great. Okay. Perfect. And I'll also send the presence tool as well.
Okay, excellent. Ibtisam, did you have your hand up? I don't want to cut you off. Was there something else?
Yeah, I don't want to keep everyone. I just have I'm connecting what you're saying about teaching as story work or storytelling with my emerging understanding of learning as an encounter with otherness, an encounter with something challenging, something unique that requires a response. And that is it is philosophically oriented through ethics of otherness philosophy, but also through one of the scholars of education in Britain called Gert Biesta. So that idea of learning is an encounter with something different and responding to that. And it seems like what you're describing as teaching as storytelling is basically, and the presence and the being and the response is basically engaging everyone in the room in that moment of learning, where the curriculum is not a script to be enacted, but more like an encounter. And both the teacher and the students are part of that encounter. So the learning is happening both ways.
I use the term dialogic. I think it's a dialogue that's happening, and we're all in the same mix. So it's a story as dialogue with the teacher holding the form and modeling the mechanism, the tools that I am using as story listening, and then open response, narrative response.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Well,
So-
all will follow up asynchronously.
Sounds good. And I just want to thank Hala again for the recommendation of David. And David, this was just fascinating. I learned a lot, and I look forward to, I think we'll do another session next year. So we'll be in touch. And like I said to everyone, I'll send you resources in the recording as well. And for those of you who are watching later too, you'll be getting this. So thanks again. Thanks, yeah, very much for being with us.